All righty. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It is Monday, February 23rd, 2026, a little after 6 p.m. Uh, let's see if we have any questions. We um, sort of did a Q&A yesterday. We spent the last couple of days talking about something that Pastor opened up to us on Saturday. And we talked about the Epstein files. We talked about, of course, feminine energy and the menstrual cycle and the energy of that. And was very interesting. We talk about embracing who we are and understanding uh, uh, the role of the church and the role that the Cavalonians' energy has had in the plight of not only the world but us as a people. Uh, we talked about a lot of stuff that I'm probably overlooking, but any questions on anything, anything, questions and or comments?
Ron, this is Evelyn. I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, and I should have reviewed that video again. I don't watch it a lot. But anyway, did the guy say on the video that it was the female that shed the blood and not Jesus? And I know I should have looked at it again before I called, but I didn't. I'm just getting in from work. And I have to watch the video again, but maybe someone else would know that he said that it was the female that shed the blood and not Jesus.
You don't have to look at the video again. The whole purpose of it was to talk about the shedding of blood by femininity and not Jesus, because Jesus is non-existent.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Pastor Jay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think also agreeing with Pastor, just for clarity too, is he made that comparison. That's where they use that to create the Jesus story. So which was
The whole thing about Jesus, as we said earlier, was about cannibalism more than anything else.
yeah.
Mr. Rod, can I add a statement?
Of course.
I think it's interesting that you guys are talking that when Jesus shed his blood, he is revered or should be worshipped. When a female sheds her blood, she should be reprimanded or just hidden because it's disgusting. Over.
Great observation.
Yes. Thank you.
You think you're smart, girl.
I try sometimes.
No, seriously though, that's a great observation.
Yeah, I like that.
Hey, George.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is GC. Also, in reference to the blood, there's a lot of spiritual connotation with that in terms of the female. And again, when we talk about spirituality, when we look at blood, I know that is more than, maybe, what I know in terms of just the power of the blood. But I think that there's some relativity in terms of what that all entails or details. So I think that there's power in the blood for sure. You know what I mean? From the feminine, from a Cabelonian woman.
Yes. Thank you. I was not able to be privy to yesterday during the period of the class. However, I did listen at the broadcast, and I gleaned quite a bit from it. I understood that there were questions in regards to comments I had made about communion and cannibalism. And in reference to how the church, the rituals of the church are based on, that one ritual rather based on cannibalism. I'm interested in knowing if there are any questions in regards to some of the other things that were stated before I began to speak to some of the things that were stated yesterday or raised yesterday. Okay. Let me begin by saying this, if I may. One of the things that was mentioned yesterday was in regards to the connection between the Epstein files and everything that's going on. I want to add to that by saying this. Epstein files, or Epstein essence, is the essence of European masculinity. And I don't think that I need to elaborate on that, because if you know anything about the Epstein files, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I make that statement. And that's something I think that we should most definitely keep in mind as we continue this journey, because there is absolutely nothing about European masculinity, Neanderthal masculinity, that has any value or usefulness to humanity. That masculinity is an affront to anything that is divine, and it is detrimental to anything that has life or gives life. And we should never lose sight of that, because to lose sight of it is to assume that there are redeeming values in Neanderthal masculinity. There are absolutely no redeeming values whatsoever in the European masculinity, none whatsoever, to the extent that everything in European masculinity is disrespectful to everything that's divine. And it is a detriment to anything that is life itself, to the extent that the biogenetically altering of food is an affront to life. It is antithetical to life, just like European masculinity is. And if there are any challenges to that, I would ask you to consider this. Find some redeeming value in anything that European masculinity has brought to humanity. One thing that's redeemable out of everything that this mindset has brought to humanity. Just one.
I had not considered the food. That's interesting. I had not looked at that.
Cannot be antithetical to life. You have to be antithetical to life itself, rather, in order for you to genetically modify food to the extent that it is poisonous to life.
Yeah. All for profits.
And it even worse than just simply the profit is that it is a detriment to all life itself, period. Because when you really think about genetically modified food, it does not offer any nutritional value whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. It robs all food of its nutritional value, which means that it robs all organic material of its nutritional needs, rather. And being robbed of those nutritional needs only results in death. So those are things that seem to be so simple, but they are extremely important when we give thought to them in relationship to what reality actually is. The another thing about that came out of that discussion yesterday, I listened very intently at the discussion about nothingness. When Ron, you were talking about there is no such thing as empty space.
Mm-hmm.
The word itself of nothing is a word that has no really existence in reality at all, because there is no such thing as nothing, but there is something as no thing. No thing means that the energy is there to be created into something, but the idea of emptiness does not exist at all. It is either a giver or a perpetuator of life, or it is not. There's no in between.
Okay.
Any questions or comments about that? Or those things that were just mentioned? And talking about life, or continually talking about it. Yesterday, when Susan raised the question about a cable line, it also brought to mind that this whole sense of understanding the cable line is speaking of life itself, and that is the reason why the entirety of the earth was known as a cable line. The whole earth is a garden of life itself that has been actually that we have been blinded to in actuality by virtue of seeing the earth through the eyes of death itself. When we cease to see the earth through a Cabelonian eyes, we're seeing it through the eyes of death and destruction. And that is simply because the essence of European masculinity is death in itself. And by virtue of that, when we understand that we have been taught to perceive or to see things through the eyes of the European, we're always seeing it through eyes of destruction, the eyes of death, as opposed to the eyes of life itself. And that is one of the major reasons that this whole idea of communion being a depiction of cannibalism is a destructive means of life. Because when you are cannibalizing human bodies, what you're doing is actually destroying human life for your own pleasures. And there seems to be, as you guys talked about yesterday, a lustfulness for this kind of attitude. When lust speaks to an uncontrollable desire to have something, or to please yourself, or to embrace something. And apparently it is an uncontrollable desire, because throughout the ages, without regard to how many times that Babylonians have made attempts to bring civilization to that European mindset, it has not been successful. The same antics are employed, even to the extent that you eat your own God. You create a God called Jesus and you eat it, as opposed to being submissive or worshiping it. You take the source of all life in the earth, the womb, and you denigrate that womb, and you treat it without having any worthiness or redeemable value at all. And then you glorify masculinity by celebrating the power and strength and dominance that it has over femininity, without even embracing the reality that everything is feminine before it becomes masculine. So that tells me also that you don't have any respect for yourself or the females in your life if you disrespect any femininity, because you're disrespecting yourself, and you have no respect for yourself either if you disrespect femininity, because you were female before you were male. So these are principles that I think we probably will be revisiting on and off throughout this journey that we're on. So, because to understand that there is no maleness without femaleness, there is no masculinity without femininity, and there definitely is no physical body of a male without it having been a physical body of a female prior to becoming masculine. And that in itself is something that should be taken into account when we consider who we are and how we are to regard our femininity in the way that our Creator has presented it to us and shown us the necessity of His presence and respect. Questions, comments? Is that clear?
I was
It's clear.
Go ahead.
you have a question, Evelyn?
Yes and no. I was gonna ask, and I'll wait till you ask your question.
Well,
Okay, I'll ask mine and get it out the way, and then you can ask yours. Is that okay?
that is perfectly fine.
Okay. So I just want to know, what is the cosmic mother, and is a Kabbalah the cosmic mother? Okay, Ron, I'm done.
Okay.
For now,
May I look at that probably differently than I would normally do that. A Kabbalah, cosmic mother. Cosmic mother is a term that we use to attempt to get clarity and understanding about the feminine nature of everything that exists, and the ubiquitous womb out of which everything comes. A Kabbalah is the spiritual environment that life functions in, or that life was brought into existence to function in. It is an environment where spirituality brought into existence physicality, with this physicality being being impossible to be untethered from the spirituality. This physical environment coming from femininity was brought into existence in order for the physical manifestation of God, of Elohim, to have to create in its own right. And created in its own right means that to bring into existence a mindset that is a universal mindset tethered to the mindset of spirituality, meaning that the mindset that is dominant in this physical realm is the same mindset that is dominant in the spiritual realm. There being no difference between the dominant mindset of the spiritual as well as the material. Why is that necessary? Because in order for the material manifestation of God to exist, it must function as God in this material body. And functioning as God in this material body means that it has to create in His image and likeness. What it did, it created in His image and likeness a physical representation of His physicality, but it did not bring into this physical environment a dominant mindset of spirituality, because the dominant mindset has given way to a mindset of destruction and all those things that are antithetical to life itself, which means that it is also antithetical to divinity. So when we talk about the cosmic mother, we are talking about the spiritual entity of life, of the origin of life itself. When we talk about a Kabbalon, we talk about a physical environment that was brought into existence out of a spiritual environment for the express purpose of sustaining life in a physical/spiritual manner, meaning that we breathe, therefore we're spiritual. We have bodies, therefore we're physical. So there is a to be brought into existence a unicity between that which is physical and that which is spiritual. Right now, we are struggling to make that happen because that responsibility was abdicated when we gave way to the dominance of a type of mindset that is not conducive to spiritual life itself. I hope you I hope that helps. There are questions about that. I don't see that much difference between a cosmic mother and a Kabbalah.
Okay, yeah, and you did very well. The answers you gave were just astounding, but yeah, that makes sense. And I'm gonna re-listen to what you said after we get off the broadcast, because
Okay.
I want to resonate with what you were saying. Thank you, and Ron, thank you for yielding. Appreciate you, brother.
No problem.
Thank you.
I guess I was just listening to you, and I was several things we talked about. I think kind of tie together. I just don't. I was trying to see how we talked about cannibalism with the slave, eating flesh, uh, doing slavery. And I'm comparing it to Jesus. There's got to be a relationship somewhere in that. Also, it made me think about what you do to food, something that is naturally grown, something that comes from the earth that supposed to support your well-being, and you take away the nutritional value of it and turn it into poison, but you still embrace cannibalism. I just all those things kind of
Will you hold that
through
part
my
about
head
the
when you were
food for
talking
a
about
second?
excuse me?
You hold the part about the food for a second. The portion.
Okay.
And let's look at cannibalism. The question about cannibalism, as we were taught in the past, we were taught that people reverted to cannibalism out of necessity, out of starvation. That's not true. If you read the history of Europe, you will find that cannibalism has been a part of their being. I can't even call that a culture. A part of their existence, maybe I should say it that way. Ever since they came out of the caves from the Caucasus Mountains. Cannibalism to the European has not been something that was done out of necessity or to prevent starvation. It has been something that has been done to usurp power and strength. When there were virtues represented in people, or that that Europeans wanted to embrace or replicate within themselves, they would eat those people, drink their blood. That was a method of usurping power and exerting control over those who were the victims of their bloodthirstiness and their desire, their lust for the taste of flesh. I can't even say that was evil humans who were doing that, because I can't even say it was animalistic, because animals don't cannibalize themselves. Animals eat because they're hungry or because they've killed because they're being attacked. I don't have a word other than Neanderthal to attach to that kind of behavior. This whole thing with Jesus was brought into being based upon their nature, not based upon anything spiritual at all. The Memphite priesthood, who went along with Ptolemy, when the Greek pharaoh who had usurped the power of the throne in Kemet, the Memphite priesthoods who went along with him in order to bring Greek control to bear in Kemet did not agree with the ingestion of blood and the eating of flesh as a means of worshiping. They, matter of fact, frowned on it, and they saw it as being totally antithetical to what they understood about spirituality and what had been taught. However, they were overruled by brutality, and the agents of cannibalism out of Rome, along with the Greeks, embraced this thing called Jesus. And in embracing this thing called Jesus, they sought to usurp the power that Jesus supposedly have. In other words, they made Jesus a divine being, and in order for them to be one with this divine being and to become divine, they would drink the blood and eat the flesh. In order for them to become just as this being called Jesus was supposedly to be. And it does not stop there. That was their means of establishing a religion called Christianity, and Judaism, of course. But that was their means of establishing this religion. But it doesn't stop with the establishment of this thing called Christianity. It also extends to those who they saw as what they call enemies, but they saw as being superior to them. They saw, Europeans saw that the natives of Acabalon were superior to them in terms of their intellect, their power, their prowessness, their existence, their ingenuity, their creativity, etc. And they chose to make efforts to usurp that authority the same way they had done in the past, and that is by eating flesh and drinking the blood. This did not end with the encroachment into Africa. This continued throughout the period of enslavement, and it still extends to this day. As a matter of fact, there are historical records that shows that during the period of enslavement, that the European males would remove the penis from the anatomy of African males, and they would ingest them because they wanted sexual prowess that they attached to the African males. They also ate the testicles of African males for the same reasons. This book called The Delectable Negro talked about how they had chefs who devised spices to make the ingestion of African bodies more delectable. And that's where the title came from, The Delectable Negro. So this whole idea of cannibalism is nothing new.
All right.
I beg your pardon? Hello? This whole idea of European cannibalism is nothing new to Europeans. However, it is something new to us as a people, even though it was attributed to us by the Europeans, cannibalism has never been a part of our lives, definitely not a part of our culture. So I find it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to separate cannibalism from the first periods of existence of Europeans in the earth, and the cannibalism that brought us to this place of where Jesus becomes the object of cannibalism, and to this place of enslavement of cannibalism, and even to where we are now, looking at the Epstein file with the continuation of cannibalism. And this idea of eating the flesh of babies or young children and drinking their blood is a quest for prolonged youthfulness. And the ingestion of flesh and the drinking of blood have different aspects of beliefs by Europeans about what kind of powers it gives them. Now, the reason that they were able to do what they were able to do in terms of a continued quest for this power is because we acquiesce to cannibalism. Not that we acquiesce to cannibalism by eating actual flesh, but we acquiesce to it through Christianity, by virtue of saying, this is the body of Jesus which was broken for us, and this is the blood of Jesus which was shed for us. By eating and drinking that wine or that wafer, it doesn't matter whether it's a wafer or wine. What the universe heard was blood and flesh, and that when the universe heard blood and flesh, that's how it was attributed to what was happening. No different than if I say I'm broke, no matter how much money I have, then the attitude of brokenness is what the universe hears, and that's what it responds to. So there is no easy way, simple way to talk about cannibalism unless you're going to talk about it truthfully. And when you talk about it truthfully, then there are going to be people who feel like they need to push back against that. But it doesn't matter how much pushback you get or give. The reality of it is that cannibalism existed out of Europe, existed during the European existence prior to encroachment into Africa or African encroachment into Europe, prior to and even after that, even up until this day. So there is no doubt in anybody's mind who thinks clearly or who seeks to do their own research in the past or to this day to understand that cannibalism is still intact. And the people who rule this earth are the ones who are primarily engaged in cannibalism, child rape, kidnap, murder, raping of adults and males alike by European males without any accountability whatsoever. And there's no doubt that the Epstein files are not just some files of politics. These are spiritual. This is a spiritual message to us, telling us, showing us that the mentality of the Caucasian has not changed, especially the masculine Caucasian mindset. The masculine Caucasian mindset is still a mindset of the most brutal, the most heinous things that you can ever think of. Matter of fact, that you can't even think of. You don't even know how heinous they are until you read about them, because they're not something that comes to your mindset. So the reason I wanted to separate that, Ron, is because we are at a different stage in this attitude being antithetical to life. The cannibalism is a barbaric attitude seeking to enhance the life of someone you envy, seeking to usurp the power, the intellect, the abilities from someone who you fear, yet you want what they have, being different than population control through the poisoning of food. At the same time, you're controlling population. You're increasing the wealth for some pharmaceuticals, increasing wealth for the medical profession, as well as the business profession itself. So while those two things, both of them are antithetical to life, they function in two different spaces. Can you see that, Ron?
Yes, yes, I do.
That's why I wanted to make an effort to talk about them separately, but at the same time, recognizing that both of them are antithetical to life.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments or both? Does that resonate?
Yes, indeed.
Yesterday, you guys also talked about the question that Audrey raised in regards to the protection of the Babylonian womb and the offspring that spring from that womb. The discussion was very impactful to me anyway, as was the request that Audrey had made prior to that. But what I also gleaned from that is something that I did not realize until I listened at the lesson, and that is the generational nature of what Audrey made mention of when she mentioned the names, when she called the names of the females who she recognized that were present on during that period of time, beginning with Jordan, who, for as far as I know, is the youngest person who is a part of this conversation now. I see the inclusivity of all generations in that, meaning that the protections for the womb right now are more we are in need of protecting the womb now than we have ever been, especially during the period of those the womb that is and the younger wombs that are in existence now, because of this big push to minimize the birth rate of the African wombs or of the Babylonian womb, by virtue of encouraging people, not just abortion, but also convincing them that they can't afford to have any children because they don't make enough money to provide for the children, while at the same time making every effort to increase the birth rate of European babies, but making every effort to decrease the birth rate of the babies that come from a Babylonian womb, without understanding that it is impossible to decrease the birth rate of the wombs of Babylon, because the wombs of Babylon are the original wombs of life itself, and it is impossible to minimize the womb of your Creator. The fruit of the womb of your Creator is not going to be minimized by any means whatsoever. And the total destruction of it is self-destruction within itself, no different than the Babylonian male who disrespects the Babylonian woman or the Babylonian womb, not realizing that by expressing this disrespect, or by failing to protect this womb by virtue of the negativity that is applied to a Babylonian femininity, that this male is actually speaking words of suicide, is seeking to die by suicide by virtue of being destructive towards the womb of all life in this earth. And I say that without hesitation about being suicidal, because without that womb and without being feminine, that entity cannot exist. So you're seeking to end your life when you are speaking negative and derogatorily about the womb of the Babylonian female. And you say, well, I'm not speaking negative about the womb. I'm just saying that black women are bossy. Well, that's negativity. And anything that you speak negative has an effect on the life that this womb brings into existence. The things that we find our Babylonian men saying about negatively about the Babylonian woman are the words that they are repeating that they have received from European mindset, and that masculine European mindset has no life in it at all, and it has no sense of respect for life itself, because that type of mindset only sees a feminine body as a means of pleasure, only sees or hears the mind of a female as something as noise, as opposed to something to be listened to. And you think about this, if that European mind male says that woman does not have enough sense to know who to cast a vote for unless he tells her, what more is he saying about you as an Babylonian woman? And if that male of a Babylonian origin is embracing that mindset, then he is far worse than that European male who he is mimicking, especially when he knows better, or at the very least has the opportunity to know better, because he has been in the presence of those who has taught him better. Can you see that? Is that clarity? Am I rambling?
I don't know.
That's clear.
No, that resonates.
I mean, these.
Because I have
Go ahead.
I have a comment. I think Audrey don't know this, but she mentioned Jordan, and she's the youngest one. And Jordan is part of Generation Z, if I'm not mistaken, which is the last letter of the alphabet. So it's like she covered the whole generation, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. And I listened at also the words that Vermeil read in regards to the spiritual essence of the name Jordan. So that in itself spoke volumes to me as well. There was so many things covered yesterday that woke up some things inside of me, or at the very least ignited a spark into a flame in regards to the connection between the Epstein, the blood, the cannibalism, the womb of Babylon, the disrespect for the womb of Babylon. All of these things are, to me, are a part of the same whole. And until we speak to them, they remain as they were. And that means in a state of negativity. I do believe, and I'm going to get to something in a moment. I do believe that that everything that we're talking about is necessary for us to speak of it at that time, because if we are indeed being guided by ancestors, then the ancestors are saying to us, this is what we need to talk about right now. And that is the reason why some of the times we don't have explanations or understanding of certain questions that you may raise at that moment, because it's not time for us to talk about it. It's not time for us to put it in the macro. However, I want to ask, Vermeil, are you available to read what you did yesterday in reference to Jordan?
If you'll just give me a second, I'll pull it up again.
Okay, thank you. 1001, your second is up.
Well, a few more minutes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. That's okay. I got you. I think it's I think it's important, and I'll tell you the reason I'm asking you to do that after you have read it. Okay,
Okay.
when you're ready, just let me know. Until
Okay.
then, are there any questions or comments?
I have a question, Red, but I don't know if it might be to this what we're talking about. You just want me to just put it out there?
Yeah. If not, we'll hold it.
Well, the question I was getting ready to ask, and I know I need confirmation on it. It says it always saying mankind, and is mankind is better than humanity? Because when you say mankind, you're desecrating the woman, because it's saying that man is first and woman is no existing. But
Okay.
when you say humanity, everybody's in the mix.
Yes. Okay. I hadn't thought about it that way, Charles, but that is a possibility. I'm not saying it isn't or it is, because I would have to look at the etymology, the origin of the word mankind, which I've always seen as speaking of this kind of man. And when I think about this kind of man, I see it in anthropological way, meaning that one kind of man as opposed to another one. The Neanderthal as opposed to the Homo erectus or whatever it is. So I have to look at that differently now that you raised that question. I know that when I speak of mankind, I never thought about it. However, humankind to me is more effective in regards to what you're asking, Charles.
Thank
So,
you, because I was always puzzled with that.
yeah, thank you. Before you read Vermeil,
Okay.
Audrey, my assessment of what you were talking about when I spoken about the progression of generations and protection of the womb, and how derogatory speech towards the Cabelonian female is also derogatory speech towards the womb of that Cabelonian female. Is that within the parameters of those parameters that you were setting when you raised that the other day?
Um, yes, I would say yes. Um, I was particularly thinking about what Evelyn said the about healing and healing the womb. And I had heard somebody else speak about that too, about how important it is for women to begin to accept themselves and to be able to heal themselves. And a big part of that is healing their own womb. And I feel like putting all of this into the macro is going to be helpful in that regard.
Thank you. I also want to say this. Do not allow anyone to make you feel uncomfortable or dirty because of your menstrual cycle. Anyone who makes you feel uncomfortable or dirty about your menstrual cycle, anyone who sees your menstrual cycle as being a negative thing because because of what they desire from you, then that means that they only see your body as an object of pleasure and have no respect for you as a female whatsoever. You're just a sex object. And that happens, then that relationship shouldn't be non-existent from that moment forward, because that is utter disrespect. And I'm not saying that because there's something I just learned when I begun this journey. I've always felt that way. I have been going to the store to pick up sanitary napkins as long as I can remember. I've never been ashamed of that because I've always seen it as a part of life itself. That's just the household I was brought up in. It was nothing for me to go to the store to get sanitary napkins. It was never something I should be ashamed of. And I don't believe that you as a female should allow any male to take you to that place of shame. To me, I believe that that is a huge reason that there is such the cramps and the suffering that females go through with menstrual cycles is due to the negativity that's attached to it. I do believe that with everything in me. Do not allow anybody to do that to you. Any questions or comments about that before we ask Vermeil to read? Vermeil, please.
Okay, this isn't from the exact spot I had it the other day, but it says the name Jordan derived from Hebrew Yarden means to flow down or descend. Spiritually, it symbolizes purification, transition, and a boundary between the old life and a new promised beginning. It represents a spiritual bridge connecting individuals to deeper faith, personal growth, and cleansing, often linked to renewal. It goes on to say, just as the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land, the name signifies a major life transition, crossing boundaries and moving from one spiritual strait to another.
Okay. Excuse me. So the name Jordan is a transitional name. It's a transition from the natural way of thinking to a spiritual way of living. Am I gathering that correctly?
Yes, it goes on to say it represents a connector, symbolizing the ability to bridge different phases of life, people, or spiritual realms.
Okay, so it becomes a bridge between humanity. So what we're talking about is when we talk about putting things in the macro, what we are talking about is the essence of the meaning of the name Jordan. Am I right? Guys, am I seeing this?
I like that.
Okay, now the
I
reason
also think it ties into what us and the ancestors, right? Am I seeing that wrong?
yes, a transition between us,
That bridge of communication.
yes, between ancestors. Yes, I see that. What it is actually a thread that knits the whole thing together, spiritual as well as the world that we're currently in these bodies. Is that it, Ron? What you were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The reason I asked you to read that again, Vermeil, is because I noticed that Jordan was on, and I know she listened at the broadcast itself. However, sometimes it carries a deeper meaning, or it's more easy to embrace when you are getting live feedback from it, as opposed to the energy from a broadcast that is taking place. And I hope you can see the message that I'm trying to convey here. Why am I trying to convey that? Because I do believe that there are no coincidences with the presence, neither are there coincidences with the name, neither is there a coincidence with Audrey having called her name first. There are no coincidences. All of this is happening for a reason. And I do believe, and I'm saying this directly to Jordan, you are in a transitional period of your life, and it is more than being in college or graduating from a college or entering a career. I'm talking about a spiritual transitional stage in your life. You may never be a listener to this broadcast again. You will or you may not. It does not matter. What matters is that this spiritual transitional stage that you are experiencing and shall continue to experience is going to speak volumes to not only to you, but to you, those who you come in contact with. And today just may not mean much or anything to you. However, you will look at it retrospectively, and you will realize that it's at this point in your life, something changed. Whatever that something is, you may never know. And I'm sure that I won't, but you will have that experience. And I say this from the depths of my soul because I feel very strongly that the Creator has you here for a reason, and understanding the depth of your desire to be the best that you can be in this society. Now it translates into being who you were created to be, the best of who you were created to be from the beginning, which transition anything that you will ever experience in this environment that we live in. That's my message from the depth of my heart, from the ancestors to you.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. I really
Sure.
appreciate that.
Thank you. So, are there questions or comments about anything that we've said so far? When we talked about the rituals of church, the main one we looked at was cannibalism. The other one that we have not looked at is the idea of baptism itself. The idea of baptism itself is a funny thing that this whole concept of water baptism is something that is being reckoned as something that will cleanse you spiritually and bring you into good standing with your Creator, when the people who brought it into existence won't even take a bath. So why would that hold credence with them if they have issues with even taking a bath, especially during that period of time when all of this was Christianity was being developed? Why is it that this was so important? Why is it that this water baptism was so important when the people who were the perpetuators of it sometimes didn't take but 1 or 2 baths in their whole life? Why was that so important? It is a mechanism of visible control to make you part of a distinctive society that separates you from those who are not a part of that society, which creates even more division in the midst of any group of people who participates in that. Saying that you are a part of this church because you have been baptized, and now that you are part of this church and you have proven it to the public by your baptism, now you can become a cannibal by the blood in the communion. Not only that, but everyone else who is not a part of this church through baptism, every one of them are less than what you are. And now you look at them and you separate them from you. They are part of this unsavory world, and you are part of a church that's telling you that you're going to heaven. Now, if you look like the people out of a cable line, yes, you're baptized, being baptized, and you're told that you're going to heaven, but you can only enjoy those things that are pleasurable in terms of a easier life, in terms of being respected in this life, in terms of having conducive living quarters in this life, and a means of employment that will sustain you properly. You will get that when you get to heaven. But the rest of us who brought this religion into existence, we are the ones who are going to enjoy it now. But if you try to do what we are doing, if you make efforts to to seek to have what we call a better life in this earth, then you're going to hell because you're in love with things. You love things. And material things is not what's going to get you to heaven. So you're supposed to suffer here, but we are not supposed to suffer. You're the ones who suffer so that you can see Jesus. But we don't have to suffer to see Jesus because we are Jesus. That's basically what's being said here. So when you look at every aspect of the rituals that makes you a part of this group of people who are set aside for a pseudo belief in spirituality, what you find is that every aspect of it separates you from humanity or others in this earth rather, and creates an environment where you present yourself as being better than, as opposed to speaking to it from a desire rather of recognizing that we are supposed to live in harmony with everyone, and that all of humanity has a right to live in this earth in not only a peaceful way, but to be able to sustain them and their families in a manner that's conducive to living itself. Is that clear?
Yes.
These are rituals that are akin to the rituals that you go through when you are in sororities and in the fraternities. I remember in our high school fraternity, the high school fraternity that I was a part of, we were considered. I guess what happened in our high school, the Royal Knights were the equivalent of the Qs in college, and as the Royal Knights, we were at the head of the food chain when it came to our fraternities, and when I look at that, I see the separations that took place because you had to be chosen to be a knight, and then there were friends of mine who were not knights, and they were in other fraternities, but they were not at the top of the food chain, and that in itself, I saw friends who were separated because of those differences in fraternities. However, we never separated, even though we was not supposed to interact with each other during our period of pledging. We did it anyway secretly. So when I got to college, of course, I did not become a part of any fraternity because my mindset was different in that I had enough problem trying to understand who I am as an African without me adding to it, trying to figure out who I am as a Greek. So that was never a part of my desire. However, I do use that to say to you that the church is what does this in a much larger way than does a fraternity does it. Why? Because when you look at that, it does not matter how intelligent, and I use this word very loosely, anyone is. People will go to church, and I don't care how many PhDs they have. I don't care how learned they are. They still will get caught up into the same divisional things that take place in church, but at the same time, they will also embrace things that makes absolutely no sense. So when people begin to question that, then the people who are doing the questioning are ostracized because the people who think they know everything have no answers. So they say that God did not intend for you to understand everything. So this is a cop-out so that they can say to you, you believe it because I said it, not because I can explain it or not because I can prove it. So I'm saying to you, there are within this society, if we are not careful, every single thing that we connect ourselves with, whether it's the church, a sorority, fraternity, whether it is a social club, whether it is a career development conference or society, it doesn't matter. All of these things in this environment are designed to separate us from each other. I was the state president of the student medical lab technicians. I was the president of that group, and and the medical lab technician group separated themselves from the student. What is it? Come on, help me, you medically inclined people. The one who breathe. Medical lab technicians and restorative intervention therapy groups. We were separated from them. Now, this is the crazy part. When I was a medical lab technician, I'm the president of state student medical lab technician, and I'm working as an installation therapist. I'm a restorative therapist. So, but yet those groups are separated. It made no, back then I didn't pay it any attention, but it makes no sense to me. Why? Because what it simply does, it creates slithers of people who don't necessarily interact with each other, but at the same time, it's called a professional group. But at the same time, it also creates a hierarchy within itself or within a group of people. So this whole society is governed by those who have created these slices of professional groups, these slices of religious groups, these slices of collegiate groups, these slices of athletic groups, and all of these slices are controlled by the same group of people who manipulate the whole society. And the reason they are so effective at being able to manipulate it on a continuous basis is because they are the ones who have created all of these different slices within the society that is subconsciously competing against each other and thinking that they are in a league of their own, separate from the league of everyone else. Does that make sense? I mean, is that clear? Can you see the divisions that are purposely brought about in the society, and how we are controlled by them? Because if I can keep you focused on you and what you're doing, as opposed to looking at somebody else and saying they're not as good as we are, that kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Tactics in the earth.
Sir?
It's one of the oldest tactics in the earth.
Yes.
And to separate.
And we have to be careful about that. Even now that we're not connected with the church thingy, you have to be careful, because you can't be of the mindset that I'm the word church. You can't be of the mindset that is us and them. It is not us and them. It's all of us. You can't be of the mindset that I have this spiritual understanding that you don't have. You can't do that. Why? Because the moment that you begin to think that way, you become the most asinine person in anybody's life. You are the person who I don't want to have anything to do with. Because what you are doing is elevating yourself above everyone else who you're supposed to be reaching out to help them see who they are. In other words, you have become one who is being served as opposed to being a servant. Does that make sense? I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. And it's imperative.
It resonates.
Thank you. It's imperative that we remain in a state of servitude. And the state of servitude, and I listened to Ron talk about this yesterday when he talked about power. A state of servitude is the most powerful state that you can be in, because it is not forcing anything on anyone. The greatest power on earth does not force anything. It just moves. It does not seek to overcome anything. Look at water. Water is the most powerful force on earth, and it does not seek to overcome anything. If it runs into an obstacle, what does it do? It'll go over it or around it. If it cannot move it, it does not fight to move it. It just simply keeps moving. When you are spiritually inclined, when you know who you are, you know that you're God. You know that nothing can stop you. You know that you are indestructible. You know that there is absolutely nothing that's not available to you. You understand all of this. You're very much aware That the wisdom is who you are, is not what you seek. That understanding is who you are, is not what you seek. All you understand that. So you have absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. You have absolutely nothing to even prove to yourself. You just know who you are. And because you know who you are, what do? You just keep moving. You just keep moving. You don't fight anybody. You don't rebel against anybody or anything. You just be who you are. We are not rebelling against racism. That's not what we're doing. We're not rebelling against any of the isms whatsoever. We're not even rebelling against poverty. What we're doing is making it a state of fact, a state of reality, rather, a state of truth. And that statement of truth is we are divine, and because of our divinity, we have an obligation to bring balance to the earth. That's it. Beyond that, that's it. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has everything to do with us knowing who we are. Because there is no greater wealth than the knowledge of self. Do you believe that? There is no greater wealth than knowing who you are.
Yes.
If it was not so wealthy, why is it that our parents did not always say to us, what did they say? Remember your Richard, remember your Johnson, remember, Did we not hear that?
All the time.
That was talking about your worthiness. That was saying that this has nothing to do with money. This has everything to do with your lineage. And the lineage of us is not just a name. The lineage of us is our divinity. And the divine essence of who we are does not set us above anybody. It makes us service to everyone. Does that make sense? I mean, can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
I know it makes sense. Just can you see it?
It makes sense. I see it.
Yes.
We are the servants of everyone. And we bear the burdens of everyone, not just those we know, but everyone, even those who hate us. We bear the burden of that Neanderthal mindset. We do. Because the objective of our presence in the earth is to alter that mindset. Because if we do not change the Neanderthal mindset, if that mindset is not overpowered by righteousness, then the mindset of people who look like us will remain the same. Because the majority of the people who look like us on this earth have a Neanderthal mindset. You know it and I know it, whether we want to admit it or not. The majority of the people on earth who look like us have a Neanderthal mindset. And that mindset bases worthiness on material acquisitions. What do you own? Where do you live? What kind of education you have? That's a Neanderthal mindset. And if we are to bring balance to this earth, the mindset must be balanced first. Questions or comments? In regards to that, the last thing I want to say, unless there are questions or comments, is this. None of this, the balance, the desires, the embracing of who we are, none of it is real. If the womb of a Kabbalah is not real. And what makes it real is how you respect it. How real is it to you? That's the question only you can answer. How do you relate to the females in your life? How do you relate to them? That Neanderthal mindset cannot have any reality to it at all. What is it that can make it real for a Neanderthal mindset when you look at what these young girls went through at the hands of these old, rich, white men? 13, 14 years old. You being forced to engage and all types of sex, of rape, really, with old nasty and old vulgar men who have no respect for themselves or anything or anyone else. There is nothing redeeming or real about that. The question is, which mindset do you embrace? And you cannot possibly embrace the mindset of a Kabbalah and the mindset of the European or the Neanderthal at the same time. It does not work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
If you don't have empathy, even for those who hate you, that's a problem within you, not them. I'm done, unless there are questions or comments. Audrey, I reiterate what you stated the other day. The womb of the Kabylonian woman must be protected. That's the only way we can protect life. It must be respected. That's the only way we can respect life. And this physical life means nothing to me. Nothing if I don't have that respect. Am I willing to give up this physical life to make sure that protection is there? Yes, I am. There's nothing more important to me than protecting the source of all life. I'm done, Ron.
Okay. Great discussion. Are we sure? No questions or comments, anyone?
We can talk about the engineered food later if you want to.
Okay. All righty. Well, then, sounds like a good place to pause for the evening. Guys, stay warm. Enjoy your week. Look forward to Saturday.
Love you guys. I wish I had been with you, however, now that I have not, but through the miracle of technology. And I look forward to seeing you on the weekend,
Take care, family.
Take
Wonderful
care.
week, everyone.
guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.